everyone, so today I wanted to do a throughout the year 6th grade video. If you want to see any of my previous throughout the years videos, I will link them all in the bottom bar below. But 6th grade was definitely one of the most interesting years of my life, in my opinion, up until we get to my YouTube years, which start around 10th grade. So in 4 videos, I'll start talking about that. But 6th grade was definitely, I think, one of the most interesting, but it was also the toughest year of my life. Hands down, I can say 6th grade was the toughest. I've mentioned it in passing before, and before I start this video, I just want to go ahead and let you guys know that I'm not telling you this story to get sympathy not votes, you guys aren't voting for me, sympathy comments. I feel like I'm on Survivor, sympathy votes. I'm not telling you guys this video to get sympathy comments or I'm so sorry, nothing like that. I'm completely fine now. So I just want to let you know that you don't need to say that you're sorry, anything like that. I am completely better now, but when I was in 6th grade, I had an illness and I was supposed to die. I almost did die, and I've talked about it in videos before. I've mentioned it briefly. I've done a blog post on it before, but if my point was to make you guys feel bad for me or anything like that, I would have done this video 2 years ago. The reason I'm doing it is because it's a throughout the year 6th grade video, and this is what happened to me when I was in 6th grade. That being said, before I start the story, if you are easily nauseated by the thought of blood or needles, I would definitely say to go ahead and turn this video off. I have over 200 videos on my combined channels. You can go watch other videos. I will put new ones up very, very soon. I would definitely not recommend watching this one, so just go ahead and X out. Okay, so most of you remembered that in 1st grade, I went to city schools for half of the year, and then I transferred to county schools halfway through the year. So I switched schools in 1st grade, and that's in my 1st grade video, throughout the year's 1st grade. Okay, so in 6th grade, middle school starts, and I don't know how it is in your country or your state or whatever, but where I live, you go to school from kindergarten to 5th grade, then 6th to 8th grade, you go to a different school, and then 9th to 12th grade, you go to a different school. So in 6th grade, I think you're like 12 years old, and I was going to a new middle school, and I was switching back to city schools. I know that's a little bit complicated, but I was going back to city schools, and I didn't know a single person. I knew of one girl, and her name was Marina, and my sister Elle had a friend that was in her grade, and she had a little sister that was in my grade. So it was like there, and then they each had little sisters that were in the same grade. Her name was Marina. I saw her one time when we went to go drop Elle off at this friend's house. She answered the door, and I was like, that is going to be my best friend, and we are going to the same middle school. Sadly, we weren't put in the same class, but I did get to walk with her out of school every single day. Our classrooms that we had for homeroom, which is what determined where your locker was, they were right across from each other. So after the final bell rang, we would each go out to our lockers, and then we would walk out of school to our parents' car together because neither of us rode the bus. I really wanted to ride the bus in middle school, but the bus wouldn't go to my house since I was out of district, since I was supposed to go to county schools. I know that's weird. So Marina was the only girl that I even knew of that went to this school, and she wasn't even in my class. So I go to school the first day, and it's all dandy. I meet new friends. I meet Lauren, who turns out to be my best friend. She's still my best friend, and I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't met her, but I had her in my class. I met lots of new friends, and the second Thursday of school, so it hasn't even been 2 weeks yet of school, I can say hands down, one of the top 3 worst stomach aches of my life, and the other 2 were when I was in the hospital for this. One of the top 3 worst stomach aches of my life, and I had no idea what was wrong with me. And I remember one of our related arts was Spanish class, and we had that on Thursdays. I was in Spanish class when it started hurting, and I thought I was going to throw up, but I was really scared to ask the teacher to go to the nurse because it wasn't even finished with the 2nd week of school yet. I was like, I am not going to be that kid that goes home during the 1st week or 2nd week, whatever week that was. It was the 2nd Thursday. Okay, so I was like, I'm not going to ask to go home. And when I walked out to my mom's car that day, I was completely hunched over, and she thought it was because my book bag was so heavy. It wasn't. It was because I couldn't stand and walk straight. It hurt so bad. So they wanted to take me to the doctor, but I was terrified of needles. I've since gotten over that because of this. I was like, I will tell you if I feel like I really am dying and I need to go to the doctor. And they were like, okay, make sure you let us know. I went home, and after that, I kind of felt better. I slept it off. I went to school on Friday. I asked if Marina could spend the night on Saturday. My mom actually said no, which now I look back on it, and she didn't really say no to me to having friends spend the night a lot. She's a really fun mom who's like, yeah, I'll cook dinner, you girls can rent movies. But she said no, and she said that she could tell that I wasn't completely better, that I think I just wanted to be better because I didn't want to miss that early in school, and I hadn't really even made lots of friends yet. I didn't want to be the sick girl that is never at school. So that weekend I am totally fine up until Sunday night. The stomachache comes back and we decided that it must be nerves, that I must be nervous about going to this new school, that maybe it wasn't going as well as I thought it did. Maybe my subconscious mind knew that like I wasn't really having fun there, that I didn't like it as much as my elementary school, that I was nervous about a test. We didn't know because I had been fine all weekend. So why would I all of a sudden right before, you know, night on Sunday when I had to like get up the next morning to go to school, why would it start hurting again? We had no idea, but my hair looks really weird. Anyways, that night I did not sleep, and that was the first night I ever stayed up the whole night that I can remember. Obviously when I was a baby I did, but like when I was like going through sleepovers in elementary school and stuff, I would never like be the one that could stay up all night. I just couldn't. I stayed up all night. I could not sleep a wink. And Mom stayed up reading PB Teen magazines with me because even back then I was obsessed with redecorating my room. And so she was reading PB Teen magazines to me, trying to keep my mind off of it. And they kept saying, you know, we're just going to take you to the ER. And I was saying, no, you can't do that. Like they will definitely stick needles in me. And I was like, no, I'm good. It's going to pass. It's nerves. I'll be fine. Well, Monday morning comes around and long story. That's like another 10-minute story right here on why I was like rushed to the hospital so soon. It has to do with our cat though, but I wrote a blog post on that and I will link that in the bottom bar as well so that you guys can go read that if you want. But to make a long story or a longer story shorter, I was taken to the hospital. Mom took me on Monday morning and Dad called ahead and said, you know, we have her coming in. Something's completely wrong. We don't know what it is. And so I went into the emergency room, and I don't know if you guys have ever gone to the emergency room to get like a CAT scan, or not a CAT scan, to get like an x-ray or something on your leg if you broke it or something. They make you wait in the emergency room for so long. Okay, they took me straight back when I got there, which is when you know something's a little bit wrong. And they were taking my blood pressure and taking like my height and my weight and all that type of stuff. And then they asked me to describe the pain on 1 to 10. Remember, I was only 12 years old, I was little, and that's how they could get me to kind of express how badly it hurt. And I was bawling at this point, you guys. Like, I could not even speak. Like, I can't explain how bad it hurt. And so I was bawling, and they said, on 1 to 10, how badly does it hurt? And I said 100. So they took me back, and they put me in a bed, and they took blood and started an IV because I was extremely dehydrated. And that, like, alone, I didn't cry when they took the blood in the IV because they told me it would make me feel better, and I did not cry, which, like, well, okay, let me rephrase that, because I was crying, but it wasn't because of the IV. Like, I was so proud of myself that I got an IV and I didn't, like, scream because of that. I was screaming because of my stomach. So they wanted to do a CAT scan to figure out what's wrong, and they thought it was something in my intestines. So I don't want to really go into detail about what a CAT scan entails, but I took the CAT scan, and then they wanted me to pee in a cup. So I went into the bathroom and I started peeing in the cup, and to be not as graphic as it kind of needs to be for me to explain what happened, I started gushing blood, and it wasn't the type of thing that, like, you know how when you're like in the middle of peeing, it hurts to stop peeing, but you can make yourself stop peeing? This was not that type of like thing. Like, you could not stop it. And I started screaming, and I was like, you know, there's only so much blood in the human body. I don't understand how I can be losing this much blood. And so it was straight up blood. It wasn't, you know, and it was blood, and it was bright red, and it just kept coming, and I couldn't stop it. So Mom ran and got the nurses and doctors, and the next 3 days were a blur of different scans, different tests, different needles, different everything. They did every test on me, and they didn't know what I had. But the first day in the emergency room, after all this happened, they put me back in a bed, and they took my mom and dad out of the room, and they said, this is what they told me afterwards. They hadn't told me this at the time. They said there are 18 different things that we think she could have. They had ruled out appendicitis. They said there are 18 different diseases that we think she might have. 17 of them will be cured by penicillin antibiotics. One of them, it will kill her if we give her penicillin. And so Mom and Dad decided not to give me penicillin, that they couldn't risk that, because if I did take the penicillin, it would get me better faster, but if we could rule out that one thing, it would take like 3 days for the culture to grow. But if we could rule that out, then we would definitely know that penicillin would be the like saving grace. So they opted not to give me penicillin, and 3 days later we find out that that was what I had. And in a town right next to mine, a week before I got this illness, it was E. coli, a week before I got it, a little boy who was my age had it, and the doctors had given him penicillin and he passed away. So the hospital was on high alert, and I don't know if you guys remember when, this is a really long story, I'm sorry, I don't know if you guys remember when E. coli was going around, like because of spinach or something, or eggs, or the petting zoo. There have been lots of different E. coli breakouts throughout the USA, I know alone. This was not the same strand of E. coli. In those, I think like maybe, I think the worst one, like 250 people got E. coli, and I think 2 of them passed away. The kind I had was from, we think the lake. You can get it from raw eggs, you can get it from raw meat, you can get it, we think I got mine from the lake, and it was E. coli 0157-H7, and it has a higher death rate than the other E. coli's. It's kind of the worst one to get, but they didn't tell me at the time that it was deadly. They told me that they had figured out what it was, and that was great because now we could cure it. And they started hanging new things on my IV pole, and they told me it was medicine. Turns out it was just water to keep me hydrated, because what E. coli does is it's toxins that are in your body. When you give it antibiotics, and this is why penicillin will kill you if you take it, when they give you antibiotics, it kills all of the E. coli's, and when the E. coli dies, it releases the toxin. So if it all dies at once, all of the toxins are released into your body at once, and it kills you. It takes over your body. If you let your immune system slowly fight it off one by one, only one toxin will be released at a time, and then your immune system can get that one before it goes for another one. You get what I'm saying? So, yeah, so I thought I was getting medicine. Turns out the only thing you can do for it is to try to stay in bed, try not to get sicker, and drink lots of water, and see if your body is able to kill it off. It's one of those things that there's not a cure, there's not a medicine, it's literally hit or miss what's gonna happen. And my parents didn't tell me that. They told me that it was medicine, that I was gonna get better, and they made the decision, you know, with the doctor, that they were going to tell me that, you know, I didn't have a chance of dying, anything like that, that, you know, yeah, it hurt, but it was fine. And I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. On the 7th night, okay, I know people say that hospital food is really nasty. I loved it. My hospital food was really great, but one night they brought burgers around, and that completely nauseated me. I could not have it in the room, and there weren't a lot of kids on the pediatric floor, so like the nurses would just like come hang out. Like I was there for so long. I mean, 7 days, that was a long time by then, and then I ended up staying for 2 weeks. On the 7th day, they brought burgers around, and I did not like it. And I was getting a lot better, and they were going to discharge me the next day, and I couldn't eat the burgers, and the doctors were like, you have to eat something. What do you want? And I said, well, I'm kind of craving macaroni, corn on the cob, bread, and mashed potatoes. I don't know why I was craving that, but they were like, you know what, that is one of the best things for you to eat. That'll get you better. So they bring it in, and turns out because of what I had and how it was affecting my GI system, that was not the best thing for me to have. And that is the night that they thought that I wasn't gonna make it. That was the hands down worst night of my entire life, and there's nothing that they can do. I was laying on my side, and my mom was just rubbing my back, and I remember they told me that nothing was wrong. They told me that I was fine, but I remember how bad it hurt and how I knew it wasn't right. And so, sorry you guys, this is like, I'm getting emotional just thinking about it, but I'm totally fine now. So I ended up staying in the hospital for another week. I got better. I got 100 stuffed animal monkeys. I had my friend Kelsey came, and her mom brought her and her sister Savannah, and they sat with me every single night so that mom could go home and do laundry. And mom still had Elle and dad and our little sister at home, you know, but she stayed with me every single night. And the best part about the hospital was the beds. You could raise the foot and the head, which was really fun. This is a really long video, I'm sorry. So mom stayed with me in my room every single night. They had a little cot for her in there, but during the day she would go home and get laundry done and do the dishes and take care of her baby and stuff like that. And Kelsey's mom would bring her and Savannah there to hang out every single day. And that is like, when I think back of the good times in the hospital, because there were some, I think of Laughing, and Breakaway by Kelly Clarkson came out when I was in the hospital, and that was like the soundtrack to my life in 6th grade. I loved it. And we would sit there and we would watch MTV, and we would wait for that music video to play during the commercials, and we would sit there for hours just watching it and waiting. And yeah, so that was definitely, you know, Mom tells me now that when she would go home to do dishes and do things, she would just sit there and cry because she couldn't cry in front of me, you know. Even that one night, that 7th night, she was so strong, and I think that's what made me believe that I was going to be okay, because I was like, if something bad was really happening, my mom would be crying, but she was so strong during the entire thing. My entire family was. And after I was completely fine, they told me the risk that it actually was, that the doctors had told them on multiple different occasions that they didn't think I was going to make it. And I'm actually very, very happy that my parents didn't tell me that until I was okay. I feel like some parents think that the kids have a right to know. I think if I actually was like dying, my parents would have let me have time to say goodbye to people. But there wasn't a time that I really needed that. So I'm actually really happy, because the whole time in the hospital I was like, oh, this is fun. On Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays they would have different people come around. So sometimes a balloon man would come around on the pediatric floor and make balloon animals, and there was one group, I think they came on Thursdays, that would bring around dogs, like of all different sizes, and obviously it was only for the kids that like weren't allergic to dogs or something, and they would bring them in, and you would just get to play with dogs. And I missed Rue so badly. I'd only had Rue for like a year, and he was my baby, and I missed him so badly. So having those dogs come into my room, when you think about the volunteers that walk around, you know, on the pediatric floor on anything, and they bring, you know, dogs, or they bring stuffed animals, or they bring lollipops, or anything, you think about, you know, oh, that's fun, but it probably doesn't, it makes the kid happy for a little while. That's what I remember 6 years later. I remember how that made me feel, and how it made me not miss my dog anymore, and how I liked holding that dog. And so that was cool, because there weren't a lot of kids on the pediatric floor at this time, and so we got like so long with the dogs and with the balloon man, and he would make me a little balloon monkey. Afterwards, my side effects have been that I was on a very, very strict diet for the next, I'd say probably 6 months. Different things I would eat would affect my GI system, because with E. coli, the toxins, I don't know, I can't explain it, because I was young when they explained it to me, so they explained it in little kid terms, and now when I think about it, I'm like, that can't be right, but I guess it is. They explained it that the toxins kind of stripped the inside of my stomach and my intestines, so when food would pass through it, I would feel it rubbing against, and that's why it would hurt so badly when I would eat afterwards. So I was on a very bland diet of just like mashed potatoes and things like that, which were good after that. I ate them after that one night. We don't know what that night did, but I did eat them after that night. And yeah, so the doctors were great, the nurses were great. It was a time in my life that, looking back, it's very significant. During it, I was excited that I was able to lie in the bed, that I could put my feet in the air with a little button. I really liked it, and I got to spend time with friends, and then I had so much makeup work to do. My teacher and the principal from the school and the school nurse all came to visit me in the hospital. The school nurse brought her son, which was really cool, because he was in my Spanish class too, and I was excited to see like someone else from school. And then the principal brought me a lavender lotion, which I really liked, and I was like, the principal of the school brought me lotion. And then my teacher brought me a card that was signed from everyone in the class, and at the time I was like, why'd they do this? Like, I didn't understand how sick you have to be actually be hospitalized. And then afterwards, I was put on bed rest for a little while, and then I went back to school. I am completely fine now. My favorite food is popcorn, and that is the one food that still irritates me when I eat it. It just like makes my stomach hurt a little bit, because I think the kernels, they're just like so sharp, I guess. But that is my favorite food. Of course, it's always what you can't eat. That's what happened to me when I was in 6th grade. Obviously, other things happened. You know, I made new friends, but 6th grade, that's all I can think about is when I was sick. Oh, and then my birthday's April 1st, and so this happened all at the beginning of the school year. And for my birthday, I asked everyone not to bring me presents, but to bring me things like coloring books and stuffed animals that I could donate to the pediatric floor on at the hospital that I was at. So After my birthday party, I went straight to the hospital and I took them, and they let me walk into any of the kids' rooms that weren't like quarantined or shut off, that weren't super contagious, and give them stuffed animals and coloring books. And of course that made me feel amazing, because I remember when people would walk around and do that with us. You know, you have nothing to do when you're in the hospital. I didn't have a laptop, I didn't have anything. I had a Nintendo Game Boy that I would play all the time, but I maxed out all of the levels, and you know, it gets lonely. So if I could, with this video, just get at least one of you to maybe think about doing something like ask your local hospital if you can bring in coloring books or bring in stuffed animals for the kids. You have no idea how far that goes. Like, literally, that is what helped get me through it and not pull my hair out, although I think I pulled my hair out sometimes. Yeah, so that was an extremely long video. I think it might be one of the longest ones I have ever done, but I feel like it's something that I've talked to you guys about it now. You know it about me, and it's something that, you know, what doesn't hurt you makes you stronger, and now you guys kind of know about it, and now I don't have to talk about it again, and when I mention E. coli, you can know what I'm talking about and know what happened. Yeah, so leave me a video response or a comment below letting me know what happened when you were in 6th grade, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye!